Welcome to the Old Man of the Three Things with JJ Redick and Tim Legler. Our very first Old Man of the Three Things with you in person, in studio.
That's it. It's good, man. It feels good.
Yeah. Thanks for driving up
here. Yeah.
Thanks for driving up today. We are going to talk about the Christmas Day games. And just for all of the viewers and listeners, we're recording this December 19th. So if anything fucking happens over the next 6 days in terms of suspensions or injuries, just take all this with a grain of salt. All right.
Well, listen, you're going on vacation anyway, so you won't have to get any of the negative feedback if we say something ridiculous.
That's true. That's true. All right. We're going to go through the games real quick. We got Milwaukee at New York, Golden State at Denver. I will be calling that game. That's an ABC game, followed by Boston at the Lakers. That's also an ABC game. Philly at Miami. Dallas at Phoenix. What game in particular jumps out to you about the lineup?
All right, real quick, first of all, just so you know, like I did the Christmas Day calling games like 5 or 6 years in a row. It was always on the West Coast. It was always like a problem for me because you leave Christmas Eve, you know, and you get little kids, it kind of stinks. And then your Christmas Day, and then you're maybe red eye back that night. 3 times weather prevented me from getting back. And the next day is my birthday.
Oh, wow.
So I would end up coming west to east. Like I'd miss all that day too. That happened like 3 times out of 6 years. The weather calling those games on Christmas Day. So hopefully you don't run into that. You're in Denver, you said?
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully you don't run into that. Are you coming home that night?
No. So
you can't even get one that night.
I'm going to be gone.
Oh, that's right.
I'm going to be gone the 21st through the 2nd.
That's right.
I will be on the road. So
Okay.
I'm moving around a little bit.
All right. Excellent. All right. So you gave the slate. Every year this comes out, the schedule. And so what do you want to do first? Like which one of those I like?
Yeah, which one
that's actually scheduled?
It's actually scheduled.
I would probably say Mavs Suns.
Okay.
Is very interesting to me. And Celtics Lakers are probably the two that jump out to me the most. I think there's a little bit still of, you know, what Luka did to Phoenix kind of still hovering. But that to me is a very interesting matchup because you're looking at now the hierarchy in the West. That's a very interesting game. Obviously, Boston, LA is always going to generate big numbers. And both of those teams, the way the Lakers have looked lately and the way Celtics have looked all year, not out of the question. You could end up seeing those teams potentially in the finals. I mean, I think you have to keep both of those teams alive for that conversation. So could potentially be a finals preview. I think of the 5 games, those are the 2 that are most interesting to me.
I like that. One of the things as I was going through the games that I highlighted that stood out to me are the Philly-Miami game and the Dallas-Phoenix game. Why? Because of what you just brought up. There's a personal matchup. There's a personal vendetta to those games. The backstory, you know, Philly and Miami meeting in the playoffs, of course, a couple years ago. That Philly not re-signing Jimmy Butler, trading him to Miami. Joel being mad for an entire season that they didn't bring Jimmy back. That game always has a little bit of juice to me. And then, of course, the Luka and Devin Booker matchup, which we touched on last time you were on the show when we talked about rivalries in the NBA. I think it's beautiful. So those games I'm excited about. You know, I didn't want to be biased in all of this and talk about Golden State and Denver, but I think that's a fantastic game. Two players who I view as like marquee. I'm going to go buy a ticket and watch this guy play in Jokic and Steph Curry. So excited about that game. But for me, it's Boston and LA.
Yeah.
One, because Boston, particularly when they've been healthy, they've looked like rock stars. That 5-man lineup has looked amazing. And the other reason is like, you think about just like the 2 premier franchises in the NBA matching up on Christmas Day. How many more Christmas LeBron games are we going to get? And particularly like this matchup. And I one thing that stands out to me, we get these games scheduled in August. We don't know how good there could be injuries. Teams could not be as good as we want them to be. I think about, you know, me playing in New Orleans my rookie year. Zion's hurt. We're a shit basketball team to start the year. We got better, but we're playing at Denver. Like that wasn't a marquee game. Zion's not in the lineup. Like we're not a good team. If you look at it right now, all the teams have a winning record except for Golden State, and they're always a draw because of Steph Curry. So I think by and large, the NBA, I think, got this right. there was a possibility, of course, that they could have snuck in Wemby and the Spurs. And as much as I love watching Wemby play, the Spurs aren't a good basketball team. So I think we have, good matchups. I would give this slate, truthfully, I'd give it an A or an A minus.
Yeah.
Not an A plus, but an A or an A minus. It's a solid, knowing that we're doing this 4 months out, it's a solid slate. But now we're going to do the fun thing, which is we're going to create the slate that we would want to see if we had the ability to flex the schedule and put, these, I guess it's these 10 teams on.
Right.
Who are your matchups? And also, we're going to go in order of sort of the timing.
The day, how the day goes.
How the day goes.
It's Christmas Day. And I'm thinking about being at home, and like most fans, like being at home that day and kind of what goes on in the house and the activities and a little bit of distractions. And so these games have to be slotted at certain times for a specific reason. And I'm going to take it a step further, by the way. You said if we could flex them. I'm going to actually do something different. I'm throwing all like logic out the window, meaning I might give you a matchup right now that can't even happen because they've already played a couple times, right? And maybe they're opposite conferences. So I'm just saying, in a perfect world, going into the season, this is what I would want to see, knowing what we know now, right? Retroactively, these are the 5 games. So we start out at noon. Noon is, I think, in some ways sort of like the sacrificial lamb game on Christmas Day, right?
I played it a few times.
Right. It's, first of all, I don't know about you. I hated playing noon games. I mean, I hated it. Biorhythm wise, it just wasn't my thing at all.
Hold on. What's interesting for me, I don't think we've ever talked about this. Didn't mind noon games. Didn't mind 1 o'clock games. Anything between a 1 o'clock start time and a 6:30 start time, go to fucking hell. Because if I get up,
yeah,
and get up
and go,
and I can eat my breakfast and go have my coffee, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
If there's that lull where my normal routine of, getting my shots up, cold plunge, lunch, my nap, all that's, if I didn't have time to do all of that and there was that lull in the day, I didn't like those 3:30 games.
That's actually a really interesting point. I didn't mind the 3:30 as much. I didn't mind the 6. The noon were terrible. I don't know how many times over the years we played the Knicks at noon in Madison Square Garden. It was a nightmare because I knew I typically was playing with some guys that were going to be rolling in probably around 3 a.m. In New York
as a
City,
visitor,
in New York City as a visitor. This is, and this was, a lot of times you're staying over. Like after the game, they're the night before the game, noon game. It was going to be a nightmare. And for me, my body, like my biorhythms kick in maximum time, probably around 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like that's when I can go work out the longest, the hardest, right? And I just never seem to get tired. Back then, it was probably more that 7 o'clock tip. Like my whole body was geared towards 7 p.m., right? Having yourself ready. So I hated the noon. So anyway, noon to me, a little bit of sacrificial lamb game, just in terms of what's going on in the house on Christmas Day. It's going to be on, but I don't know if people are glued to it. I'm going Heat at Knicks. Okay. That's my noon game. First of all, I think it gets you going because it's going to be physical, as physical as you can get these days, JJ. It's going to be physical, okay?
Don't get me started.
I know. They do that on purpose. They don't like each other a whole lot, right? It's those, they've have recent playoff experience with each other. Jalen Brunson's going to be a marquee draw. The Heat are a team obviously playing the finals. So I'm starting off at noon, Heat Knicks. Who do you got?
All right. I'm starting off at noon with arguably the premier game.
Really?
Because I want to get people going.
Okay.
I want to get people going. I think sometimes by putting the sacrificial lamb game at noon, you don't get people going for the day. All right, now I got to watch every game. Right? So I'm going to start with Milwaukee at Boston.
Whoa. All right.
Milwaukee at Boston.
Right off the bat. Now, you understand, Christmas Day, I don't know how it operates in your house, but like Christmas Day, a lot of times, right? If you're having people over, it's, they're kind of like arriving in that window. So you got doorbell ringing, getting up, you're hosting I call it the obligatory chit chat around the island in the kitchen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the greeting talk for half an hour and you're missing a quarter and a half of the game. That's why I wouldn't put that first, just because of the chaos kind of going on in the house. No one has really settled in to the sofa and like that cocktail in my hand to sit down and watch the game yet.
I get that. But I also, the way my schedule works is I have 4 Western Conference teams playing at home. So it was the only time slot that could get the noon game.
It factors in, right? You got to have an East Coast game, right?
But look, that matchup would be so intriguing because of the trades made right before the season. And, we would get that, Dame versus Drew matchup.
Yeah.
Giannis and Tatum. That to me would be a perfect way to start Christmas Day.
Awesome. All right, I will now. Let's switch it up. You do the 2:30 game.
I would say my 2:30 game. We're staying in Denver.
Okay.
It's going to be the first ABC game.
Be there. Yeah.
I'm going to call the game.
Right. Okay. Cool.
I want Philly at Denver.
Okay.
How did the NBA not do this?
I know.
On Christmas Day, how did we not get an Embiid and Jokic matchup on Christmas Day?
Great minds are thinking alike because I've got a couple of the same matchups, but at different time slots. I'll get to those, but you're 100% right. My 2:30, and it'd be a 1:30 tip there with time change, Midwest, a Central Time Zone game. I'm going with 2 teams that were left off the slate altogether because I want to see these 2 teams that are like this next risers in the West. Oklahoma City at Minnesota. Give me some Shea. Give me some AE, right? Give me that high-powered Oklahoma City offense against that great Minnesota defense and the 2 young stars going at it and 2 teams that have surprised some people with how good they have been this early in the year with their record anyway. So 2:30, you're starting to get settled in. All the relatives are over. Got that first drink in your hand. You're actually going to sit down, kind of catch the end of the Heat Knicks at my noon game, and now watch these 2 stars go at it.
It's a shame. We're going to talk about this in a second after we do our schedule. It's a shame that we don't get either Shea or Ant on Christmas this year.
Yep.
Particularly, I think with Oklahoma City, I felt like there was a decent amount of buzz throughout the summer that this team would be good. Minnesota, we knew they could be good. But I mean, these are the 2 best teams in the Western Conference, and they're not playing on Christmas Day. That's a miss.
Right.
That's a miss. They both deserve to be playing on Christmas Day. They both deserve it.
Because the league is trying to super hype that day, right? So that's why this day, the schedule reveal for that day is an event in the summer. Yeah. And you don't really necessarily know who's going to be there. So I want those 2 teams playing, and I want them playing each other, and I want them in that slot. The 5 o'clock game for me is the one you already said. So it would be a 3 o'clock tip in Denver, Philly at Denver. You're 100% right. I don't even know. Have they played twice already this year?
No, because I have an ABC game on January 28th or 31st, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to see Embiid and Jokic.
At Denver. I have that game.
You have to see Embiid and Jokic, particularly with what Joel Embiid is doing right now.
Yeah. Well, just the backstory of the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, right.
Just neck and neck in the MVP race. Right. Let's settle it on Christmas Day with a 12:30 Denver tip-off. And in your case...
Throw like a green uniform on the Joker and the Nuggets, right? Just to add to the mix with red trim.
I like it. What I mean? I like it.
All right, so what do you got for 8 o'clock?
So, no, I got to do my...
Oh, that's right, 5 o'clock.
My 5 o'clock game. And I actually had some trouble with this one. Because of who I wanted to fit in. I'm going to be honest. Sorry. Minnesota was the one team that I left out, and it was hard for me to do that. But I've got Steph versus LeBron in LA. I've got Golden State at the Lakers. And when I think about that time slot in particular, that's the biggest draw. And you have the game's 2 biggest stars in terms of ratings, in terms of so like the buzz, like we get all the data on this in terms of ratings. Who's your favorite player? And it's like Steph, LeBron, and then everybody else.
Yeah.
These are the 2 biggest draws in the NBA right now. And I'm not saying they're the 2 best players right now, but they are the 2 biggest draws in the NBA. 5 o'clock, prime time, ABC game, Mike Breen. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think both of those games, the Philly, Denver, and by 5 o'clock, you're really dug in.
And we've started with Milwaukee at Boston in my scenario.
Right.
You went with a snooze fest, Miami, New York.
The problem with you, though, look, that might be so good at noon. And when you laid out, people might just be like, you know what? I can't top that.
That's true.
So I'm just going to shut it down for the day. 8 o'clock is that game, Boston, Milwaukee.
Okay.
By 8 o'clock, all of the ill-fitting sweaters have been held up in front of yourself, that you've gotten, and the toys have been played with. Younger kids put to bed. It's adult time. It's like, man, this is the one I've been waiting for all day. I like the lead up. Give me the 3-game lead up to that game because I think that is the game of the day. Boston, Milwaukee, hopefully both teams at full strength. And let's just see who's who and who actually looks to us to be the favorite to come out of the East. Right now, it looks like it's Boston, but that could be a statement game for Milwaukee.
So my fourth game, I've got Dallas at Oklahoma City.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
Shea versus Luka. The other thing I factored in here a little bit, and this is not a knock on the Dallas crowd, but when I think about the best sort of home crowds, Oklahoma City, I mean, I played there when they stunk, and I played there when they were awesome. Their crowd's always great. And so them getting a Christmas Day game, I've got, Boston getting a Christmas Day game, Denver defending champs, home court advantage, them getting a Christmas Day game. My last one too, great home crowd. So that sort of factored into who's home and away. But I like that matchup. They just had that crazy game where Dallas went on that 30-0 run. Oklahoma City ended up coming back. So I like that matchup.
All right, I like that a lot. Now you're going to be shocked, I think, by my last game because of who I omitted in the 5 games.
Okay.
You got to get Luka in there, and you got to get Steph in there. So I've got Dallas at Golden State. Now, Draymond being around, if he were playing to get into it with Luka a little bit, would make it a little bit more interesting. But you're getting Luka, you're getting Curry, 2 of the most entertaining players in the league going at it to finish off the night. So you do see I left somebody out.
You left LeBron out.
I did. I left the Lakers out. And look, I'm going to be the first to admit, obviously they deserve to be there. He does from a pure, just entertainment standpoint.
Okay.
Watching the Lakers play isn't as entertaining. For me personally, it's subjective.
Okay.
As some of these other teams and some of these other storylines. I also don't think they don't have like a real rival right now to play against. That if LeBron had an actual rival right now in the league, like their team and him, is Durant one? Like, would you get Suns, Lakers maybe? Would that be one? And that could potentially be like a Western Conference Finals preview, maybe. I don't know, but it's a terrible omission. But it's just for me, subjective list. This is fine.
I mean, now we get to debate our list. I'm going to go with my last one in a second, but I just want to point out the fact that you don't have Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, or Anthony Davis playing on Christmas. I just want to point that out. All right, my last game, and this was the hard one for me.
Okay.
Because part of me wanted to put Indy at Sac.
Oh, just to see if they could bust a scoreboard.
Yeah. Just a great way to end the day. Yeah. 150 to 145.
Right.
Halliburton versus the Kings. Fox versus Halliburton. Like Sabonis versus his old team. Thought hard about that. But ultimately, got to go with Phoenix at Sacramento.
Yeah.
Phoenix at Sacramento.
That's good.
So you get the star power on both sides. You get the home crowd with Sacramento. Everybody's been sitting around all day. They've watched all these games. I think that would be a high-scoring game. Yeah, it'd be fun.
That's a good point, actually, because you're going to need something after 5 games, and it's starting at 10:30. You better draw me in right away.
Yeah.
Like give me like a 40-38 first quarter.
But think about drawing that Sacramento crowd on Christmas night.
For sure.
Getting a home game after all the shit the franchise has been through for 17, 18 years up until last season. They're going to be hyped. It's going to feel like a playoff atmosphere. They're going to hand out all the T-shirts that match. The one side will be purple, one side will be white. Like it'd be a great if Sacramento had a home game on Christmas.
There were some. You mentioned some of the great home crowds, and this has lasted so long because even Sacramento was not very good when I was in the league. Before we gave them Chris Webber, but that's a whole nother story. And even then, you play against them. They were a 25-win team, and you're in there, and they're 2 hours before the game.
Yeah,
they're encircling the court.
Yeah,
just to watch guys shoot and warm up. That's how into it they were. Utah was always a place that just was rocking from the beginning, and they were really good at that time. Was always on. Portland. Did you get Portland's best crowds? Because man, They were
We did. We played them in the playoffs.
alive.
Yeah.
When you'd go to Portland too.
And then early in my career, we'd play there when they had B. Roy and LaMarcus. They were really good. And
They loved their team,
and then
man.
we had them, later when I was with the Clippers, we played them in the first round. They beat us. And you go there. I'd go there for a regular season game. Like I remember I had a game. I mean, we're going to talk about this on the Old Man of the Three, but we had a game my last year in Orlando. We were not good. It was like a Tuesday or Wednesday night game, random West Coast, Portland, show up, and it's rocking. And it felt like a hype, nationally televised game, and it's two teams that weren't, particularly good.
I like your point about OKC's crowd, and I actually saw the previous version of that franchise, how great Seattle was.
Yeah.
I mean, that was top 5 in the league environment going in there too. So you're right. Reward these. That's why I had the Knicks, by the way, hosting that first game, because there's to me the Garden.
Yeah.
When the Garden's alive and on a Christmas Day game, like what comes through the TV at the Garden is just different than other places. That's why I was having that game first to get me going.
It's interesting. I played in that noon game at the Garden when I was with Philly, my first year, and a lot of Philly fans there. And it was a lot of back and forth, and we won the game. And I remember the crowd being pretty lit. I called the New York noon game last year against Philly again. Philly ended up winning. Joel had a big second half. George Niang hit some threes and got the crowd going. But for the most part, it felt very much like a noon game, just a normal noon game.
It was in Philly?
No, it was in New York.
It was in the Garden. It's always in the Garden. If the Knicks have the game on Christmas, it's going to be at the Garden. Yeah, okay. Cool.
So no, for me, no Miami, and they're deserving because they played in the finals last year. Like they have Jimmy Butler, Bam. They deserve to have a Christmas Day game.
Don't get you super hyped to watch. Though.
I just couldn't fit them in. So no Miami for me. No Indy and Tyrese. I think they're entertaining. I don't think they deserve a Christmas game necessarily yet. No Clippers, which we're going to
I left them out too.
No Minnesota. That was hard. No Knicks for me. And no Orlando, which I don't know your feelings on them getting a Christmas Day game at this stage.
I'm okay with them not getting a Christmas Day game at this point. Yeah, fine. I'm okay. Let's talk next Christmas about Orlando.
Next Christmas. All right. Greatest omission here for the league in terms of the player that's not playing on Christmas, but deserves to play on Christmas. Because I think for players, teams, when someone gets their first Christmas Day game, it's a big deal. It's a stamp. Like this is the marquee event of the regular season and has been for years. Who's the player that you think deserves to play on Christmas the most that is not playing this year?
It's got to be Shea, right? You agree?
Yeah.
It's got to be him. And I don't know if it's possible if there's still like actual really diehard NBA fans out there that have not seen a lot of him. I think there are actually. You need to watch it. It's just special watching him operate offensively. I think he's top 5 hardest individual cover in the league. He gets what he wants when he wants to. And he does it in such a way that it just never looks forced. It looks easy. He's always got a counter to great defense. Can beat you any which way. And he's just excels when the game's on the line. Like those pressure moments, he loves having the ball in his hands, and he's going to go make something positive happen, get off a really high quality shot for himself or somebody. So he has to be the guy that, and he's probably disappointed, because it is, you're right. It's a status thing, absolutely a status thing. And part of it is you and part of it is your team. Your team has to be kind of grab that attention. And maybe, this will be the last year he'll be omitted.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that he has been one of the 3 or 4 best offensive players in the league this year. And I don't think it's a stretch to say he's been a top 5 player in the league this year. Yeah. And on top of that, they've had team success. I think he's the obvious one to me. And you bring up the star power thing with him, and he doesn't do a lot in terms of media, interviews. Yeah. So unless you are a diehard fan who loves watching League Pass at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, you're not getting a ton. They don't have a ton of nationally televised games.
Yep.
And I just think for the league, it would have been nice to showcase Shea and showcase OKC.
That's a great point too, because even the personality component aside, because you're right, you don't hear him talk a whole lot.
Yeah.
He's also not giving you that, yakking on somebody's head, right? Highlight and then mugging, and then flexing afterwards. Like he just plays.
Yeah.
He just goes up and down. He just plays and he just destroys people in the process. So it's a little bit more like almost subdued in the way he goes about his business, that it doesn't draw a lot of attention to himself. Ultimately, the team's success will lead him there to games like that and marquee matchups. And if he, has some postseason success this year and he just dominates a first round series and gets that team through and then has a 6 or 7 gamer in round 2 against a guy like LeBron or a guy like Jokic, and everybody's tuned in at that point to watch, that could be the springboard for him next year to be included in that Christmas Day slate.
100%. And we're going to be spending a lot of time actually talking about Oklahoma City in this week's Old Man of the Three, which you will be joining us for. All right, this has been another episode of the Old Man of the Three Things with JJ Redick and Tim Legler. Appreciate it.
Got it.